2030.
Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund,
It's a
there's
big
a lot of
vision.
excitement
It's
around
transformational
specifically.
change. Every aspect of the kingdom, economic, social, cultural, religious.
2030.
2030.
2030.
This is the 2030.
Yalla.
This is the 2030 episode 56. Dr. Hanaa Almoaibed joining from London. Hello. Nice to see you. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm well. How are you?
Doing well. Super busy. It's a super busy time. Yeah, everything is Gucci here. This week, we're going to have a really cool conversation with Faisal Bin Homran, who is Chief Product Officer at the Esports World Cup Foundation, which hosts the largest esport event in the world, and it's coming up. So we wanted to talk with him about that and the development of the esports ecosystem in Saudi Arabia. And we're going to just jump pretty quickly here right into that conversation. But before we do that, Dr. Hanaa, we got a great piece of feedback, and I'm going to measure the rosiness of your cheeks or like the flushness of your face on this one. But this one's directed at you, actually. And this is on YouTube. This is from user Malshuyukh. So I don't even know how to begin to say that. But
I think her name is Amal.
Amal. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. From
I don't know
Amal on YouTube, maybe. Hanaa, you are so inspiring. I would absolutely love some Arabic subtitles in this podcast for those who are not very versed in languages. I would love to share this with my sisters for inspiration. Thank you both for your hard work. Wow, Dr. Hanaa, what praise.
I'm really happy that she found me inspiring. Thanks, Ahmed, for the incredible feedback. And I'm sure that you are just as inspiring and would love to meet you someday.
There you go. And yes, on the Arabic subtitles thing, we're working on that. We know that, it's we just want to make sure we do it right. We don't want like the kind of Google Translate issue where it's just like, oh, it's translating and it's like people are reading it and there's like, what does that say? When I see that in English, sometimes I'm like, it's really hard to follow. So we're working on that. So it's coming. Amal, and thank you for the lovely feedback from my esteemed co-host. Dr. Hanaa, let's get right into our conversation with Faisal Bin Homran.
Let's do it.
Faisal Bin Homran joins us now in the 2030. Faisal is Chief Product Officer at the Esports World Cup Foundation, an annual esports tournament held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which is actually the world's largest esports tournament, which is held in Saudi Arabia. Previously, Faisal was Chief Esports Officer at the Saudi Esports Federation. Faisal, game on. Thanks for joining us on the 2030.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm happy with this attraction of the esport and gaming as a topic here in Saudi and globally as well. So I'm super excited for this session.
We're really excited to have you here today. And before we begin and kind of discuss esports and gaming in Saudi, a subject that is of great interest to our viewers and listeners and a critical piece of the vision, of course, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. So if you could tell us kind of how you got into gaming and esports, is this a personal passion that you turned into a career? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about Faisal.
Of course. So my name is Faisal. I'm a gamer, as you would assume. I graduated from industrial engineering, but I didn't want to continue engineering. I was like, I want to follow my passion. So since I was a gamer 15 years ago, I got to be exposed to esport. Esport is competing with others in tournaments and such. And in the university times, I used to compete with different local tournaments, winning some of them, getting to know more esport, watching some international teams and players and how to follow that. Then things went after each other, and now I'm following my passion since I graduated. And now I'm really happy with the place I am. I'm leading the biggest esport IP in the world, following my passion, and I'm super happy.
So Saudi Arabia is sort of positioning itself as a esports hub globally. This question is a little bit about the ecosystem in Saudi Arabia. This is a vision. It's an effort backed directly by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, who we understand is a gamer himself, which always helps. And my first question is about the shaping of the national esports strategy under the Saudi Esports Federation, your old hat. Can you share with us the key pillars of that strategy? How did you align them with the longer term national objectives of Saudi Arabia?
So, of course, first of all, Saudi Arabia if not the only country in the world that has a national esports and gaming strategy, like an official strategy. That's number one. Two, Saudi started efforts since 2020, since COVID. The Saudi Sport Federation, while there was a pandemic hitting the world, had the first online global tournament called Gamers Without Borders. And this initiative was a charity event that involved a lot of tournaments and a lot of players and teams from all over the world to donate $10 million to their chosen charities. Since then, gaming became more of a phenomenon in Saudi, and we started to have more different projects after each other. And before that, while I was in the federation, of course, there was this study about the esports and gaming to be a national strategy with the potential growth. As you can see currently, games is becoming more progressing than music and other big industries. So the potential of this industry is really huge. Saudi took the first steps towards it with online tournaments like Gamers Without Borders, with Gamers 8 as a physical project that happened in 22 and 21 and 22. And then in 2023, when the Crown Prince announced the Esports World Cup and the Esports World Cup Foundation to own this IP and take it forward, things become way different when it comes to leading the industry and leading this IP specifically. World witnessing a country that takes gaming and esport seriously to take it to the next level. That's something really helped us previously, and the communication with publishers, clubs become more serious. When we try to speak with publishers or teams before, it's like, hey, we want to do something here. But after the big announcement of the Esports World Cup, everything turned to be different with, as you said, the Crown Prince being interested in being a gamer himself, but also about the esport itself.
And I mean, to achieve this, there's a bunch of different organizations, right? You have the Saudi Esports Federation and, of course, Savi, an investor in the space backed by PIF. So can you walk us through the different organizations, the separate roles and how they're contributing to this goal? And specifically, can you explain how they're working together?
Of course. So as an ecosystem, you have the Esports World Cup Foundation, who owns and executes the Esports World Cup. You have the Saudi Esports Federation that owns the local IPs and local tournament and responsible for growing the talent and leading the national team to perform on global level. And then you have one of the PIF subsidiaries, Sabi, which is responsible of investing in the different industries or different ecosystem when it comes to gaming or esports or even game development. As you know, Sabi has different subsidiaries. One is Steer that develop games, one called EFG, which is the biggest esport and gaming operator, and also other subsidiaries that's around the ecosystem of this. How do we work together? Of course, our main partner in EWC to operate is EFG, to operate this biggest IP. And of course, with Saudi Sports Federation owning the infrastructure, the relationship with the local clubs, the relationship with the local IPs that qualifies to Esports World Cup. So there's a big team that is aligning together how to achieve the Saudi esport and gaming strategy together when it comes to the different scopes.
So as we understand it, there's physical developments going on as well in esports. I mean, Qiddiya, Neom, and elsewhere, these places are building sort of esports districts and dedicated physical spaces to esports. Can you talk about how that sort of fits into that ecosystem that you just described?
Of course. So speaking futuristic-wise, we have Qiddiya would be the home of Esports World Cup, and they announced the gaming district as well. So there is a lot of players in the esports scene. One is clubs, one is publishers, and the third one is IPs like the Esports World Cup. So we work together how to work with Qiddiya to be there in the future. That's number one. Of course, another player is Neom when it comes to the game development and publishing and such. So these different stakeholders play together in one symphony that they focus on different scopes that complement each other But at the end of the day, our goal is clear to make the Saudi Arabia the center of the game, and Riyadh is the hub of the sport internationally.
And it's interesting because I feel like when we were talking right before we started recording about, whether or not we're gamers and what platforms and consoles we're using. And I think that there's a lot of appetite for esports in the kingdom, but I'd really like to know from your perspective, who's driving that interest in the space, consumers, as well as investors, and just in general, like where's all the energy coming from other than from the top?
Okay, going one step back, gaming is a huge industry. Esport is the pinnacle of the competition. So gaming is huge. It depends by the publishers, the demand, the influencers, the consumers, and such. When it comes to the esport, one of the things that I really always answer when you say esport, it's not one game. I'm not taking FIFA or EAFC or Overwatch. It's different disciplines all over this spectrum of esport that's controlled by the power of the publishers, as they own the IP and they control the access to it. There are some popular games, yet not accessed by the MENA region, for example. Lucien, for example, today is a professional player for Game X, but he cannot qualify to the World Cup or the World Championship because of the connectivity. So a lot of things that control that. One is the publishers, one is the appetite of the consumers, and sometimes the influencers' impact on how those games communities can survive or be active moving forward. So, as you said, yes, there's a lot of players to control the appetite and the scene of different communities and games. But that's why we have the Saudi Esports Federation to engage with the communities, to get a feedback. That's why the Esports World Cup choose the best games out there globally to introduce in the platform of the World Cup every year.
Yeah, and let's dive a little bit deeper into the Esports World Cup. This is the largest competitive gaming event on the planet. Tell us about how the event has grown since its launch, what you guys have done to grow it, and then how you seek to grow it further here and continue that global dominance and ensure that the EWC really becomes a global cultural phenomenon.
Yep. So Esports World Cup, why it's happening, why it's there. So one, Esports World Cup found a gap in the industry when it comes to crowning the best club around the world. There was no event in the world that crowns the best club in the world. You would have, for example, Lucien would be a one-game expert, Overwatch, for example. I don't know why I'm giving you always the example. Hanaa would be a different player in Game X. Clubs cannot name the best club in the world, like happens in football, for example. So that's the main mission of the Esports World Cup. Then we have principles with the Esports World Cup. One, we have the best games in the world that bridge between East and West. We can jump later on to the details of that. There is a lot of games that are popular in the West that are not popular in the East. And Esports World Cup is bridging that gap when it comes to different games, different communities. Two, we have the best clubs around the world that compete in EWC or the Esports World Cup. Three, we have a life-changing prize money for the players themselves. And lastly, we have the best and biggest gaming festival around the world. With those four principles, we can say the Esports World Cup was announced, and that's the focus of the EWC when it comes to principles and DNA. And with that, we managed to have the best games from all over the world with the best publishers, of course. We managed to partner with the best 40 clubs around the world. We managed to have the biggest prize money in the world that changed the life of the players. And lastly, as we did last year with the festival, successfully we had one of the biggest festivals around the world. We had more than 2.5 million visitors last summer. And hopefully this year we're planning to have more moving forward.
That's fantastic. Actually, I was following it last year and I was a little bit confused just because it's not really my area at all. And so I was trying to understand exactly what was going on. And this might kind of help if your answer to this next question. So when we're talking about esports, we're really talking about two things: those elite competitive players, right? And then of course the mass audience and the entertainment dimension of it, right? So is there a model or a framework that you use or, thinking about even that is going to create appetite for those hardcore fans, but also people like me that are really curious, but not really sure what's going on?
100%. That's why we call it the community event. We bridge both of them. So the target audience for the event happening in Riyadh every July and August is to target esport fans, gamers from a wider appeal, and general audience. And we need to have activities for both that connecting the tissues between each. So our aim, even with our festival activations, is to have an event that can turn someone who is a general audience to be a gamer, or to have someone who is a gamer to be an esport fans and start follows the esports scene moreover. So when it comes to our fourth pillar, which is the festival, we try to have a diversity in the content that cater for all. Families with their kids, gamers with their different hobbies, and lastly, the esport fans who are traveling from all over the world to attend a Counter-Strike event or a Call of Duty event. So we're trying in the festival, which is happening in the Boulevard, trying to cater all of those different segments to have a full 360 target audience.
So organizing events, any event, if it's a dinner party, if it's FII, it's never easy, right? It's always easier than it looks. And you have visitors coming from all over the world to come to Saudi Arabia to compete in these events. It's got to be a heavy lift, right? To put on such a big show, the world's largest. Can you give us a little bit of a behind the scenes look at how that goes, and maybe any information you can share about the upcoming EWC in 2025?
I've been part of the Giga Project Gamers 8 and then EWC. So you need an amazing team behind. And we have in the foundation an amazing team that can take that heavy lifting, as you said, Lucien. But two things. One, heavy planning that start the year before. So when you think that we are currently planning already for 2025, no, we're planning also the year ahead as well, because 6 months is not enough to satisfy the expectations, the growth of the industry, the audience, and everything else. So we have a great team and great partners locally and internationally that work strategically with us to plan and enhance everything towards EWC. For example, last year we had 22 tournaments. Then this year we have 25 tournaments. That means I need an additional stage, an additional arena that need to be built. And we found the space in the Boulevard, but it was not an easy challenge, to be honest. Then And I wanted to put that in two different perspectives. One is planning and execution. When it comes to the planning, it's super heavy. We have an amazing team that plans with us when it comes to the festival, the esport, the clubs and players relations, the publishers management, the strategic sponsorship we have with the international sponsors. All of that is running in the planning. In the execution, what people don't maybe know, and I would talk more about it, it's a marathon. It's 7 weeks. It's 8 weeks. It's not a weekend event. That the first event I've done 3 years ago with Gamers 8, I remember we had the feedback from week number 1. It was an 8-week event. Then the team was telling me, Faisal, okay, we'll do it next year. I was like, no, we are 8 weeks. So each week is a project by itself. I want to say the feedback from the community corrected in the next week. So it's heavy execution as well. We're agile. We listen to the feedback from the players, publishers, and the community, the players themselves, to enhance moving forward. So it's our my fourth year as heavy lifting. We have an amazing team. I thank them every day because sometimes we have different challenges with dealing with different stakeholders. But the thing that I would say about this project, everyone wants you to succeed. And I'm not only talking about the team of the foundation. I'm talking about the local stakeholders, the ministries. If we had a connectivity issue, Ministry of Telecommunication jumps in and fix it. So everyone wants this to succeed. I'm super happy with the different stakeholders we have locally. We never had an issue that no one wanted to help, like some of the projects that you might find out there. So we have an amazing team, but we have an amazing partners that we're super happy and comfortable to deal with. And this year will be one of the greatest year for Esports World Cup or the gaming festivals around the world. I would challenge anyone who has 10% gaming in them to come and enjoy. Lucien, please come to the EWC. You'll enjoy. Hanaa, please come to the EWC. You'll love it. You'll have an amazing experience going through the different sections or districts or experience. You would find something that you would love. and enjoy or share with your family.
I'm sure my kids would love it, actually. And I probably would enjoy it as well. I mean, if you especially, I was just recently in Japan and I went to Super Mario World in which was I was like reliving my childhood of all of the games,
Yeah.
and I spent hours and hours playing Mario, both on the original console and then on Super Nintendo. But I think like there's got to be a lot of, and you mentioned stakeholders, but there's got to be a lot of other adjacent industries that are growing as a result of the work that you're
100%.
doing. And I would love to hear a little bit more about kind of what excites you in that space.
So one of the industries that, of course, we work with, sports, which some people see it the same, but last year we had a lot of engagement and projects with football players. Why? Because they own esport teams. And you have a lot of football gamers as well. I'll give you an example. Neymar last year visited us as one of the commitment to be done in WC. Then we were surprised the week after that Neymar's agent is calling. And we were like, why is he calling? And he's like, he was super happy and want to come and enjoy again. Like, okay. He loves to watch Counter-Strike and play Counter-Strike. Then surprisingly, another visit the week after that didn't stop. So we found a lot of football gamers that are interested in esport, either by owning a team or investing in a team that participate in the Esports World Cup, or them being gamers themselves. So that's one of the things that I love always about sport and esport when it comes to they're adjacent to each other, especially that some of the games we're having this year is originally coming from the sports team. We added this year chess. So we have chess as one of the titles in esport. And we have Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru, the top players coming to EWC and compete in the esport version of that sports. So there's a lot of industries that grows adjacently with esport, entertainment, music. A lot of the projects we're working on to have our own song of the year. We have an opening ceremony happening on the 10th of July. So a lot of things that are interconnected with the entertainment movement happening in Saudi that are crown jeweled by the sport or esport as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And Faisal, you mentioned something a little bit earlier. I think, because esports is changing so quickly, and we were talking a little bit about how you guys are evolving, adapting to continue your sort of dominance and achieve the goals laid out in the vision. Technology is really changing rapidly as well. You have new platforms, you have blockchain gaming, AI game design. I mean, there's a lot going on in technology in general, which of course affects your work at EWC. Are you guys focusing more and more on mobile? Is there a way to future-proof a mega event like the one you're doing so you are always ahead of the trends?
So that's a great point. When I said previously that there is games popular in the East, not in the West. For example, East use more mobile games than the West, and more games there are dominant. So we're trying to have the best games regardless. So we have mobile games. We're covering most of the genres out there when it comes to strategy, sports, MOBA, hero shooter, FPS. So we're trying to cover all the spectrum of genres in esport that consists those different technologies. One of the things we're doing, with our research and development, we have a look on the upcoming games coming out there. And one of them is the virtual reality games that we test in our festival, but not yet in our competitive scene. So we have a look with our partners, publishers, and the new comers when it comes to different games. And we engage with them and we test the technology with them. So we're ahead when it comes to any new games out there. We have an engagement with them. We do a lot of festival activations with them. But overall, if there's a game that is super big and has big community around the world and has a big viewership and the publisher is supporting it, you will find it in EWC. That's why our principle is to have the best games from all over the world.
And I don't know if we've covered this yet or not, but are you also kind of supporting in the development of new games? For instance, just referencing something, I recently read a novel, Tomorrow. I don't know if you know about it or have read it. Highly recommend it because it was about basically people developing games. It was very creatively done. But I found that whole process was super interesting as well, and just kind of who was going to buy the new games and how they were positioning things. So I wonder if that is also something that you're supporting or thinking about supporting in the future, locally and internationally.
100%. So 2 elements: the esports competitive part, that's clear, that for anyone who watch esports and come to enjoy the competitive part. For the festival part, we announced different initiatives. One of them is called Festival Stars. So if you're developing a new game, you can come to the festival and showcase it to the public. And there's a lot of different B2B events that happen to have investors or companies to invest in those games. So EWC is a platform for anyone who would develop a game or interested in new technology to showcase it in the festival part. So both of them complementing each other. And so, yes, we are engaging with a lot of game development locally and internationally to showcase it in EWC. And we have also connecting the B2B event, whether investors, publishers during the event itself, to connect them with those future games, upcoming games, hopefully to be joining EWC officially as one of the best games in the world.
Before we wrap up, what games do you play? I'm putting you on the spot, but what games did you grow up playing? What games do you play now? If you're allowed to say without sounding impartial, what do you like to play?
I used to be a professional FIFA player, which is EAFC now. And that's what made me more following my passion back then. Now I play Rocket League and Valorant and I enjoy watching them. But overall, I don't have much time to play now. I watch them more than I play. So that's one of the downside of becoming part of the execution of the EWC. You watch them more. But hopefully after the event, I'll have more time to enjoy playing the games I like.
I was just going to say, I heard that, I don't know if this is one of the games, but Battlefront is making a comeback online. And I don't know if you've heard of this or not. But my kids were very excited about this because they play it offline, but found it really boring and stopped. And now there's this huge online community that's back playing it. And I wonder if you watch those fluctuations happen and that changes kind of the approach to what you're selecting in terms of what you want to play and what people are asking to watch and all of that. Kind of.
No, of course, we watch these trends coming into the industry. We have a look and we have that threshold if it joins the festival or the esports competitive part. Hopefully next year it will join. We'll see how the trend goes on and the community is more active. But yeah, we have a look on all of those games, on all of those trends as well.
Is there something that you wish the outside world, I mean, much of our audience is outside of Saudi Arabia. They're sort of interested about the kingdom's development. We cover all aspects of it on this show, but many are doing so from an investment business standpoint. Is there anything that you wish the sort of outside global gaming communities, especially in esports, you wish that they understood better about Saudi Arabia, what you guys are doing? You know, anything kind of beyond the typical headlines you see, which is what we do on this podcast, but sort of the human stories behind what's going on in esports in Saudi Arabia.
100%. I've been within the movement of esports in Saudi, and I've noticed some of the misunderstanding going on out there. EWC, or the project happening in Saudi, is not to control or dominate the industry. Most of the event we're doing, the IPs we're doing, is with alignment with different regions and stakeholders. Example, publishers. If publisher have a qualifying event, we don't want to do our own. We want to work with those partners. So if you notice EWC as a project, the planning phase is to engage with as much partners and stakeholders from the international ecosystem to make it happen, rather than doing it our own way. Publishers, we follow the trends and the recommendation they're doing. The different operators from all over the world, we're not dealing with one only Saudi company that operates that. No, if there's a good qualifier or a good event happening in China or in Japan or in the US, we're going to deal with them. So we're here to support the ecosystem and try to make it sustainable with the different events happening. So if you have an idea, if you have an event that can be part or be within EWC, we're more than happy to engage. We're more than happy to talk as long as there is value for both parties.
I'm going to let Lucien wrap up. But before I do that, I want to ask you one last question, which is how do you get the energy to get up every day and plan this event that is going to be very long, very intense, and incredibly dynamic?
So I have around 15 years experience in esports since I started competing. I'm one of the few lucky people that do something they love. And honestly, going every day to the work, doing the thing I love, seeing it grow, seeing those small stories when I said a life-changing prize money with those different teams fuel me to do more. I love to see the community grow. I love to see different stories that are successful for different people around the industry. So I'm lucky to work in something I love. I think that's the main reason of me going to work every day, happy, smiling. Sometimes I'm grumpy, but most of the time, hopefully, I'm smiling. But yeah, so I'm super happy and lucky to do something I truly, truly love and I believe in that will be the number one sport in the future. Hopefully, in 10 years or less, we'll all witness that esports is not a phenomenon or a movement. It is one of the biggest sports out there.
Faisal Bin Homran, Chief Product Officer at the Esports World Cup Foundation, with the annual esports tournament coming up in Riyadh this summer. Thanks for the invitation for that. I will hope to take you up on it. Same with Dr. Hanaa. If not her children, she may send her delegates over to represent. But this was really great. Thanks so much for taking the time, Faisal.
Thank you so much, both. I'm
Thank
expecting you all in EWC. No excuses. So see you in Riyadh
Inshallah.
in July. Ma salama.
Okay, Dr. Hanaa, news this week. We are in like this weird, unpredictable global economy right now. Tariffs, war, all kinds of disruptions, energy prices. I mean, it's really a very a global market in turmoil, I guess you could say, or uncertainty is definitely the word I would use. But anyway, Saudi Arabia's economy grew by more than expected in the first quarter of 2025, according to government data estimates, with lower oil prices impacting the economy less than previously forecasted. First quarter GDP grew by 3.4% compared to the same quarter of the previous year, beating flash estimates of 2.7% released in May by Saudi Arabia's General Authority for Statistics. What's interesting about this is really you have what's going on in the energy sector. So Saudi Arabia is increasing production, which means they're making more money, right? And then you also have non-oil growth outperforming as well. Quote, the upward revision was both due to a smaller annual contraction from the oil sector and stronger private sector growth, said Monica Malik, chief economist at Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank. So yeah, oil GDP shrank by 0.5%. That is a lot less than initial flash estimates had it, contracting by 1.4%, and non-oil growth reached 4.9%. Whoa, compared to estimates that it was going to be 4.2%. So, this is good news for Saudi Arabia for sure. And I think was kind of eyebrow raising.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see this kind of news because I think it's just reinforcing the fact that this is, new data always feeds into what they're reporting, looks like. And therefore, it's important to kind of keep on top of it and really understand that it's not just like a one trajectory that isn't going to shift and change. Actually, yes, it is moving in one direction. However, we have a lot more insight as the data becomes available, and that can kind of help us refresh our outlook and how we think about these different things. So thanks for highlighting.
Yeah, I mean, definitely refresh, right, on the non-oil growth. We've talked about that a lot on the show. It's so important. So yeah,
absolutely.
Super good news.
Excellent. But you know what, Lucien, you mentioned it in the intro of this episode, and I think it's really important to kind of reemphasize that Hajj season just came to an end. So congratulations to anybody that performed the pilgrimage this year. I heard it was a very, very smooth ride, which is wonderful. And I wanted to highlight a couple of things. Obviously, it was a successful season. It's always huge feat to manage that many people that are coming to, of quite small space that also need to move quite a bit in between a few small spaces. So according to GA-Stat, 1.5 million pilgrims came from outside of Saudi Arabia and over 600,000 from within the kingdom to have a total of 1.673 pilgrims this year visiting Mecca. But I thought there were some really interesting stories that were also circulating. So I think that one of the ones that really caught my eye were these 6 British Muslims that sailed from the UK, from London to Saudi Arabia. It took them 59 days, and then they got to Jeddah. And I saw them also post a few kind of like clips on their social media about who was kind of inviting them into their homes and majlises, once they'd arrived before they actually performed the Hajj. But you were able to track them through the journey. But I think like that was a really different thing. It's interesting to see how they're making Hajj go viral in a different way by kind of unconventional ways of getting there. The other story that really caught my eye was 3 Spanish men who rode horses from Spain, from Andalusia to Mecca, kind of retracing that journey that happened in the past, recreating the pilgrimage of Andalusian Muslims centuries ago. It took them 4 years of preparation, which I thought was incredible. But it also took them 7 months to travel from over 4,000 miles across all sorts of terrain and different countries. I think about a dozen countries, and some really adverse stories. So if you can look them up, I would. It was fascinating. So Hajj is successfully concluded this year. Hajj Mabrur to you all that performed it, but also let's have a look at how people are being really unconventional in getting there and thinking about kind of that connection between mind and body and endurance that you can really establish in getting there to begin with, let alone the actual rites and rituals around the whole process itself once you're there.
Boat up Hajj experience sounds pretty amazing. That's so cool. No, Eid Mubarak to everybody. And that's what I think is truly unappreciated, even in Saudi Arabia, but certainly outside of Saudi Arabia, is the logistical challenge of hosting this many people in one time in such a tight time frame at millions of people. And there's so much that goes into that, right? I mean, transportation, infrastructure, health, safety. It's just, I mean, the Minister of Hajj and his whole team, right, deserve all the credit in the world for making this very safe and very accessible. And making sure that, and you were in Saudi Arabia when I was about 2 weeks ago. I mean, there were advertisements everywhere. I got a text message to my phone saying, hey, if you're thinking about doing this thing illegally, don't, because there are, serious consequences for that, because they're prioritizing health and safety. I just think about this and I'm like, it's like planning an event, but an event for, 6 million plus people. It just is insane, right? Just a couple of other things I wanted to throw in here. So they have a metro system for the Hajj. Metro. Obviously saying it wrong. Yeah, thank you. So that carried 1.87 million passengers this year. So like transportation capacity there is definitely improving. Certificates were awarded to 420,000 Hajj mission participants, really awarding these people for participating and making this thing run smoothly. Logistical success this was. And the healthcare system provided nearly 200,000 services to pilgrims. That's a heavy healthcare burden. So you're standing up kind of this pop-up healthcare sector industry, like for a one-off use each. It's just insane, right? So I'm glad you chose to highlight this topic.
Yeah, pretty impressive stats, and a lot of news ahead of time to make sure that people were safe, to not do it without getting the proper permits in place. And those are definitely worth following. Those rules are very, very strict because of adverse consequences for not being on the path that is established and well monitored for hospitalization, rescuing, and for whatever eventuality might happen, but also the refreshments, the water, the food, and just all of the security and safety around it. Just really, I think there's so much that goes into the planning that you need to make sure that you're following the rules as much as possible to stay as safe as possible. So
Yeah, really quick shout out to Johnson Controls, which does a lot of the air conditioning around that event, which is just an amazing thing to think about because it's so hot. But anyway, thank you for highlighting that. And we're running through the news today. Just look at us. We're actually moving at leopard speed. What a
Leopard.
transition. And I want to talk about leopards for a second to round the show off. So I read this article in the New York Times maybe 2 weeks ago or a little bit less than that, but around that time. And it was sort of one of the stories that came out of President Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia. But the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have agreed to send 2 rare leopards from Saudi Arabia to the National Zoo, not far from where I live in Washington, D.C. 1,000% chance that I go see them this summer. And this is, the article's really good. I'm going to put a link to it in our show notes and then on this segment if you're watching. But I mean, what happened was President Trump made his trip to the Middle East. There was a huge delegation. And so there was a big meeting as part of it, several big meetings as part of it, but there was one in which the president and his tech entourage and other members were there coming and meeting members of the royal court, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, of course. And so there was like this meeting, and then the Smithsonian here in the U.S. has been really trying to get these leopards to come to the United States, so people can see them in the zoo here. And they've been kind of lobbying for this behind the scenes. And so this lady, Brandy Smith, who is director of the Smithsonian's National Zoo, was actually, flew to Saudi Arabia, was there, and essentially was like in the meeting line for everybody. And so when she got to meet President Trump and His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, she mentioned essentially that she was really interested in the leopards. And as soon as there's a quote, as soon as I said leopards, I saw both of them, their attention popped. She recalled in a recent interview from her office back in D.C. with the New York Times, she said that Mr. Trump had many questions about the leopards, like, quote, like, how big are they? What do they eat? How dangerous are they? That kind of stuff. We joked about this, but we almost did the Trump voice because it's how, that's how he speaks. But yeah, so, this is kind of like what happened with China, when they sent the panda bears over. These are, endangered, ultra rare leopards. I cannot wait to see them. I love cats. And anyway, I just thought this was really cool. It's kind of like one of those like soft power cultural exchange things going on between the U.S. and Saudi in this rebirth era, as Charles Halab called it. So yeah, anyway, leopards. There you go.
Very exciting. I don't know. There's maybe you should come to Saudi to see the leopards, right? Like, why do you need to bring the leopards?
Bring the leopards
to
over
DC?
Here. I want to see the leopards right here.
I'm not sure that I support that, but I also think in general, I think that it would be great to have another exchange a little bit about kind of like what zoos should look like and how to maintain animal welfare and all of that, especially considering all of the controversy around big cats. But exciting, and Saudi leopards are so exciting. Such a great story. And Princess Rima bint Bandar is a huge advocate of kind of big cats within Saudi Arabia. So I have a feeling she may have had something to do with this because she is also obviously ambassador to the United States. But very, very exciting news. I have one last bit of news.
Bet. Yes.
Pretty safe bet, right? One more piece of news that is kind of exciting. Flyness IPO is making a very, very strong debut. It's wrapped up its 4.1 billion Riyal IPO, which was 3.5 times oversubscribed, with retail investors scooping up 20% of total shares. And I think it's important to give a little bit of background on this. So Flyness saw the retail tranche of its 4.1 billion IPO 3.5 times covered, as we mentioned. Basically, individual investors booked 10.3 million of the total shares, lining up at least 10 pieces each. And the books are now closed on the budget air carrier's main IPO after it wrapped up all final allocations. And its IPO at 80 Riyals a piece is the top range that it was guiding on. And basically, this is a PIF-backed airline. It's taking 30% stake to Tadawul. That was 100% oversubscribed. The airline, hang on one second. Take out that airline. What I wanted to say was this marks the first major airline IPO in the GCC since 2008 and the third ever airline listing in the region, following Air Arabia and Jazeera Airways. It also is the largest Saudi IPO of the year, surpassing Al Qura for development and Al Musa Health. So there you go.
Super
if you want to invest in an airline.
Yeah, well, there's a joke that some make that the fastest way to turn a billionaire to a millionaire is to buy an airline. But obviously, Flynas has bucked that joke trend. It's not trend, but whatever, man. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I mean, like, what's cool about Flynas is stereotype, I guess. Yeah. What's cool about Flynas is they really found the market gaps, like low cost, inter-Gulf travel, Hajj and Umrah. These things were their bread and butter. A modern fleet. I mean, they saw sort of like what was going on around them and said, these are the pain points. And we talk about air travel like way too much on the show. It's something I think about all the time, and actually spent a lot of time this week reading about it, like way more than average. So I'm glad you brought this up. But, innovation in the aviation sector, and specifically for big airlines, like needs to meet, because passengers are very simple to understand in air travel. Like they don't like to be nickel and dimed on water and stuff like that. And they want their stuff to be on time. Some of it's out of their control, but if you have an airline and you position it in a way that, solves for that, people will buy it. People are going to travel. Anyway, congrats to Flynas on their IPO. I mean, 3.5x oversubscribed, high price. There's going to be some happy execs there and at PIF. So well done to them. Well done to you, Dr. Hanaa, for this great episode. I will see you next time.
Congrats. Thanks, and to you.